The Nintendo 64 is a console that sits firmly in the nostalgia of gamers everywhere. It was Nintendo's first true foray into 3D and 64 bits. It's responsible for some of the most legendary games of the mid to late 90s. Your Ocarina of Times, Mario 64's, GoldenEye 007's, and of course, Legend of Mystical Ninjas. At the same time, the Nintendo 64's full library is an interesting one. It's smaller than other consoles, with 388 full official releases across the years compared to the PlayStation 1's over 4,000. A lot of third-party ports were notably downgraded from their CD counterparts, lacking FMVs, high-quality audio, and making carts was expensive. But also, those who did it well did it really well, leading to games that have absolutely stood the test of time. A vast majority of the rest of the library seems to be more low-key, with a ton of releases being stuck on the old console, never ported, and sometimes totally forgotten about. A lot of cool video games that I think deserve a shout out, good or bad. Like, sure, we all know about Star Fox 64 and how it's literal perfection, but have you played Hybrid Heaven? The time Konami went, let's combine Metal Gear JRPGs and wrestling and see what happens. That's the kind of cool experience you can only get on the Nintendo 64.
So yo, it's Austin, and today we're keeping it simple. Cool Nintendo 64 games, good, bad, it don't matter. I want to talk about some games on a console that I think about sometimes, because you know, where else am I gonna get a chance to talk about Battletanx? We've got a whole lot to get into today, but before we get started, today's video has been sponsored once again by Titan Mattress. Some of y'all might have seen us get this a few months ago, alongside a classic flying elbow. I'm gonna do it again. Oh yeah! Well, I'm here to say that the Titan Plus Luxe mattress we were sent has held up really well. We were looking for something really supportive that could deal with us shifting around or our cats playing night crawlers without being woken up, and I've been really impressed. Some mornings I don't want to get up at all. So I don't. Titan mattresses come in several different sizes, are all built with heavy-duty coils and high-quality foam, which means they'll resist sagging and sinking, so it'll feel fresh for years. We've been using this one for about half a year now, and it's really made a big difference. My crusty 30-year-old body needs as much support as it can get. It's not sagging, and it can withstand the occasional coffin flop. It's like they say, you never know your sleep situation until it gets better, and thankfully, Titan mattresses have a limited lifetime warranty and come with a 120-day night sleep trial, so you can see if it's right for you. Titan mattresses are designed, assembled, and shipped straight to your door from their factory in Arizona, so they're able to use premium materials at a reasonable price by cutting out the middleman. That includes free shipping, by the way. Titan's designed to support any type of body. That includes tall, big, and strong. It's simple to buy online, and you can even use your health savings account. So if you need something that'll actually hold up, this is it. Check out titanmattress.com or scan the QR code on the screen and save 30% off with my code ERUPTION. Let them know I sent you in the post-purchase survey, and I'll keep sleeping on mine. Check out Titan Mattress today. Thanks to Titan for the sponsor, but for now, we gotta get back to the show. The 5th generation of video game consoles had a ton of licensed games, and this was right before the quality of those dipped off the cliff. Again. I ignored this one as a kid for other titles that were donning the IP, but Star Wars Battle for Naboo is a hidden gem. I sure do miss Factor 5. The Turricans were solid. Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures is a Super Nintendo classic, and Star Wars Rogue Squadron and Rogue Leader are two of the best Star Wars games ever made. So I'm not really sure why I slept on Battle for Naboo. Coming out December 14th, 2000, one of the last 20 games on the console, Battle for Naboo follows Lieutenant Gavin Sykes through the Battle for Naboo. Get entrenched in the warfare with the Trade Federation, help form a resistance, and make sure Queen Padme Amidala is all good. Essentially, a game made out of the random shootout battles in the last act of the Phantom Menace, but it's all in the same engine as Rogue Squadron, so you know it's good. You get to assume control of several vehicles in your missions, some on speeders, others in close quarters inner city, and let's not forget about the classic N1 Starfighter. I always loved the way this thing looked. Battle for Naboo is a pretty easy game to understand. The controls were great on console, and things felt great, especially if you had the expansion pack, which made the resolution a little less crunchy. Look, I just love the way that these aerial dogfighting Star Wars games played out, and considering this is more of that, it's hard to go wrong. I'm just glad I didn't have to play as a Gungan.
This looks worse every few years. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire is also very good. Part of a multimedia project that wanted to bridge the gap between Empire and Return of the Jedi, Shadows of the Empire tells the story of Dash Rendar, the coolest guy ever. I had his little toy, I read the book, I played the video game, and made my parents feel ill with the first-person snowspeeder action. This was my first time playing a third-person shooter. It was way too difficult for a 6-year-old, and I could never figure out how to get past the 5th level Gaul spaceport. But it did make me think IG-88 was the deadliest assassin there ever was. This dude went hard. Nowadays, you can play a ported version of this on PC where it runs way better. The auto-aim trivializes a lot of the challenge, and the draw distance is understandable, but considering this was quite literally the 11th Nintendo 64 game released, I think Star Wars did a good job bookending the console on both sides. Donald Duck Goin' Quackers. You know, sometimes it'd be obvious that a video game would have multiple versions, but in the case of Donald Duck Goin' Quackers, I had no idea. The covers were the same across the board. The Dawn had different versions, all done by multiple studios, all with varying content. There's the PlayStation 1 version, the Nintendo 64 Dreamcast version, and the PlayStation 2 GameCube port. All three are doing similar things, but with differing approaches. Goin' Quackers for the Nintendo 64 was definitely the closest we got to a Crash Bandicoot clone on the console. Ubisoft Casablanca was in charge of this port, and it follows the same structure as the other releases. Daisy's been kidnapped, Donald Duck is pissed, needs to beat Murloc's ass, and you do so by hopping around collecting items, sucking down angry juice, and punching skunks. Goin' Quackers is a relatively bog-standard platformer that's not going to impress much in 2026, but it does have a lot of charm. The levels have a fun, cartoonish flow, proportions are exaggerated, and the soundtrack is exciting. That's one of 3 totally different soundtracks, by the way, I wasn't kidding. Despite this, Goin' Quackers can be 100%ed in a single afternoon. It's like barely 5 hours long. It's not difficult at all, it's very much something for a younger audience, or someone who just really likes Donald Duck. It's enjoyable and fun, sure, I'm just not really sure that it's worth the current loose price of $70. What? Whoa! Now, there's a decent amount of licensed games on the Nintendo 64, a lot of which hit multiple platforms. Eurocom's Tarzan, Mission Impossible, Toy Story 2. Neversoft's Spider-Man is a classic that holds up just as well as some of the newer releases, Horrifying Black Cat and all. But when it comes to exclusive licensed games on the console, there's nothing that beats out GoldenEye 007. Although WWF No Mercy comes close. I feel like nothing touches the hype factor No Mercy's intros got. The Nintendo 64 notably couldn't use FMVs and CGI cutscenes in the same way as their CD-ROM based competition, but what we got here is this smartly put together compilation of images, logos, and in-game action all mashed together looking so stylized you'd think this little machine could, even without the expansion pack, unless you're counting X-Pac.
Well, Hulk Hogan, you suck, pal!
WWF No Mercy is considered one of the best wrestling games of all time, and for a good reason. Fresh off a sting with some of the best WCW games, Aki Corporation and THQ hopped over to the WWF, made WrestleMania 2000 Virtual Pro Wrestling, and then the absolute peak of this style, No Mercy. It's a perfect, cool blend of arcadey action with simulation-style grappling. Pulling off moves was easy. You'd press a button to lock up, then another or direction to execute whatever move was assigned.
Button awesome.
It was designed to make you feel as cool as possible with the least amount of annoyance, and what you get is a game that has nearly infinite replay value. What it lacks in story modes and traditional video game structure, it more than makes up for in everything else. The roster is filled with several pages of superstars. There's Royal Rumbles, ladder matches, championship modes, a character creator that was pretty in-depth. You could change multiple aspects about your person, the move sets, the entrance. This here's Austin. No, not that one. Me, donning my APA shirt and coming out the Xbox entrance. Yeah, sure, it's a little limited by today's standards, but in 2000, this was awesome. It still is. It's got its own dedicated modding community that's still active to this day, and the recent AEW Fight Forever based a lot of its gameplay mechanics on it. People like No Mercy, me included. And being fair, sure, the FMV quality of the entrances is pretty funny and stroby. The models were super blocky for the time, and if you don't like wrestling, this one's just not not gonna do anything for you. But if you do and you haven't played No Mercy, get on that ASAP. If not, maybe check out some of Aki's other offerings like Def Jam Fight for New York, Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generation, or SimCity DS. Kinda crazy to think the company responsible for some of the best wrestling video games of all time is now making Style Savvy and Fashion Dreamer.
Here, you'll aim to become a stylish influencer. And you're in luck.
When you're a kid, you don't realize what may or may not be a video game remake. You just head on over to the rental store, see something with the words Space Invader on the cover, and think, oh, what a cool, original, new, unheard of idea. I just didn't realize how many games on the Nintendo 64 were remakes. Old names, new faces. Space Invaders. See, even the box doesn't let you know unless you like flip it around and go to the tiny corner to see classic Space Invaders. But that can mean anything. It's, well, Space Invaders. Just with power-ups.
Yes!
Okay, maybe not a whole lot to say here. Activision and Z-Axis took the old thing, slapped on a new 3D coat, and called it a day. There's no formulas being reinvented, no narrative breakthroughs, just good old Space Invaders, perfect for a rental and to play co-op with a family member. But there were a few more of these new versions of games. Crave Entertainment released Asteroids Hyper 64, which is literally what you see on the screen. Asteroids, a classic arcade game now palatable in Hyper 64. Although it's a little sad that the entire game has only 6 different level backgrounds. And in case you were wondering, yes, it's extremely hard to see. You're gonna die. Hyperly. Crave also gave us Robotron 64. Technically a port of Midway's Robotron X on the PlayStation 1, 64 is a total banger. Itself an update of Robotron 2084, one of the best early twin-stick shooters. Robotron 64 slaps that onto the C buttons, throws you into an endless gauntlet of dudes and screaming electronic dance music as you shoot everything, everywhere. Reviews from the time felt largely meh about Robotron, saying you'd be better off playing the original, and I can agree with that. 2084 is one of the best arcade games ever, but that one didn't have this mad scientist with a large baby head staring at you in the menus. Again, a perfect rental. Infogrames tossed their hat into the race with Load Runner 3D, a slow, plotting take on the original. Join Johnny Load as you break blocks, move across platforms, and get enough items to exit levels. I do like that they incorporated the 3D world into the game. It reminds me of Roll Away on the PlayStation 1, where you need to view the puzzle from the context of the entire screen as a whole. Not bad, but ultimately too sludgy to hold my interest for long. Look, a kid's gonna play Pokemon Stadium, not Load Runner 3D. I've been mostly describing reskins, but it's not all like this. Shadowgate 64 Trials of the Four Towers serves as a sequel to ICOM Simulation's iconic point-and-click adventure, Shadowgate. Developed by Infinite Ventures and the original NES release team, this is a strange one. Simplifying the complicated interface of the original down to a 2-button control scheme, Shadowgate 64 has you running around solving puzzles, talking to people, and feeling the vibe of the world. A vibe that is very strong, by the way. Fantastic music, higher detailed textures than you would expect, a well-designed audioscape for the Nintendo 64 sound chip, and a gameplay style not found on the console. Although, you better like old school instant deaths. Shadowgate 64 has no combat in the traditional sense. It has no RPG progression. Despite this cover, it's closer to Myst than Wizardry, and it is absolutely not for everyone. You really didn't see adventure games on the Nintendo 64, so Shadowgate 64, Trials of the Four Towers, fills that gap nicely, even if the reviews weren't kind. All right, 2 more. The best of the batch, and of course it's the same publisher. Anyone familiar with games from the 80s to 2000s is definitely familiar with Midway. The classic pinball and video game publisher has been through a series of trials and tribulations, bankruptcies, and acquisitions, but they're also the people behind some of the most beloved arcade franchises of all time. Your Mortal Kombats, Rampages, Spy Hunter, NFL Blitz, and that's before counting all the extra stuff from Atari and Williams like Rush, Defender, Joust, and of course, Paperboy. Now, Paperboy is an interesting one, mostly because just about every version of this game is a port of the original. It's a simple premise. You're the Paperboy, you deliver the paper, boy. Throw the National Enquirer or whatever into the mailbox of everyone who subscribed while dodging what I can only describe as hell. There's a ton of ports, a sequel that hit in 1991 for a few platforms, a lot of which are way too hard and not good, but the music of the NES version sticks in my head to this day. Shoot forward to 1999. Midway would team up with High Voltage Software, the people behind Family Guy video game and Lego Racers, to bring us the Nintendo 64 version of Paperboy, and it's way better than I expected, even with its bizarre MIDI jazz soundtrack.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good, no worries.
The concept is exactly the same. You play as the Paperboy or girl, go to wacky neighborhoods avoiding traffic, dogs, weird neighbors, and whatever this is while trying to earn your $3 an hour. Everything, and I mean everything, wants to kill you. It's basically the video game version of driving up my old apartment's parking garage. Paperboy works surprisingly well in 3D. The low poly visual style has that late 90s wacky vibe and charm, the levels put you in a loop in case you miss something, and there's a few mini games to test out your tossing skills. If you pick up these collectibles, you'll unlock bonus levels and boss fights where you'll be facing off against like gorillas, delivering the paper to the dead, and engaging in wacky hijinks far beyond the original arcade game. And well, this might be an underrated gem on the 64, especially because it was an exclusive. It's just a little short, clocking in at about 2 hours to do everything. A shame this is and was the very last Paperboy game, because I think they really could have taken this concept further. And lastly, also from Midway, Gauntlet. Man, I love Gauntlet.
Valkyrie needs food badly.
These games were a simple premise. We got 4 characters, you take 3 friends, hop on this relatively large arcade cabinet and mash buttons through dozens of floors of enemies while feeding it endless quarters, mostly because even if you weren't doing anything, your health would still tick down. It was simple 80s arcade action, probably most famous for the goofy voiceovers you'd hear while playing.
Remember, don't shoot food. I've not seen such bravery.
After Gauntlet 4 came out on the Genesis, the series went quiet for a while. Probably half because Atari was busy getting acquired by Time Warner, but they'd relaunched the franchise into 3D in what has to be one of the best dimension transitions, Gauntlet Legends. This was at every arcade I went into. It was loud, brash, the fantasy heroes had their Power Ranger color schemes, and I'd listen to Blue Wizard is About to Die blast out of the arcade in the bowling alley filled with envy. Thankfully, Atari and Midway decided to port this over to the Nintendo 64 before anywhere else, and I sure did play this for hundreds of hours. Gauntlet Legends for the Nintendo 64 is a step down from its arcade counterpart. It's got frame rate issues, the visuals are notably worse, and the audio is a good bit crunchier, but also, it was the only home version we had. And thankfully, it still supported 4 players, so suddenly Gauntlet Legends became this perfect action RPG you could play locally with friends. You could even save individual character progress in case Craig got grounded again. I think the definitive home port of Legends is the Dreamcast version with its way smoother everything, and that doesn't hold a candle to the re-release expansion, Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which brought it all to the 6th generation with a bunch of new content. But that little N64 cart got so much play in my home. Gauntlet Legends might be the most video game-ass video game ever made. It's extremely basic, is a little mindless, has unfair, arcadey mechanics, and a story that could barely fill out a paragraph, but I loved it. It might even be one of the best games on the console. Now, imagine my disappointment when Seven Sorrows was nothing like it. 2014's fun though. The Nintendo 64 is filled with classics, but it's also packed with all kinds of weird and neat stuff. Like, at this point you've probably heard of Space Station Silicon Valley and Mischief Makers, but have you heard of Super Robot Spirits? Probably not, considering it didn't come stateside. But hey, I'll take some G Gundam any day. Developed by Banpresto and technically a spin-off of the Super Robot Wars series, which also had a Nintendo 64 entry, Super Robot Spirits literally said, hey, what if we made the coolest thing ever? And a massive crossover robot fighting game was born. We got Aura Battler Dunbine, Chodenji Machine Volts 5, Mobile Suit G Gundam, Invincible Steelman Daitarn 3, and more. The game itself is okay. The backgrounds are bland, the visuals incredibly basic. Though I do love these MIDI-ass versions of classic mecha anime themes. Truthfully, it's held back by the fact that it's a Nintendo 64 fighting game, meaning that it's gonna be played using C buttons and a wonky stick, but the concept is strong. That being said, there sure are a lot of N64 fighting games. Killer Instinct Gold, Flying Dragon 1 and 2, Fighter's Destiny, Deadly Arts, Dual Heroes, Dark Rift, and so much more. I'll always love Rakuga Kids for its insane, charming visual style. Konami's unique fighter has you playing as the drawings of children beating the snot out of each other. Got good music, there's fun combos, goofy looking characters. If you take Super Smash Bros. Out of the equation, this is probably one of the best traditional fighters on the platform. It certainly isn't Transformers Beast Wars Transmetals. It's a shame that it, like Robot Spirits and that weird Neon Genesis EVA fighter, didn't make it stateside. But you know what did, and is also completely unrelated? Battletanx. I'm pretty sure I've talked about Battletanx in the past, but let's keep it real. The 3DO company might not have the best lineup of games on their belt, but they do have a bunch of stuff that appealed to me as an 8-year-old. Heroes of Might and Magic, awesome. Army Men, sure. Battletanx, probably the coolest thing I'd ever played. Yeah, sure, maybe the plot's a little stupid, but I didn't think about that. It was tanks. Get in the tanks. Blow stuff up and try to survive. Use the nuke. This is awful. The vehicle combat-loving gene lives deep inside my veins, and the sequel, Battletanx Global Assault, is more of the same, better even. Although this one wasn't an N64 exclusive. I have great memories of playing Battletanx multiplayer growing up, and anytime I revisit one of these two games, it's always a blast. Truly, they don't make them like this anymore. Mostly because 3DO went bankrupt right after. Oh well.
Nutcracker.
Speaking of nukes and things they don't make anymore, one of the strangest, most high-profile releases on the platform was Blast Corps. Absolutely the black sheep amongst the rest of Rare's N64 offerings. Blast Corps has you driving or running around with a singular goal, destroying everything in the path of a nuclear missile carrier stuck in the plot of Speed, I guess. You assume control of one of several vehicles, each with their own style of clearing debris. We got dump trucks doing drifts, bulldozers ramming, a motorcycle with missiles, and a giant mecha robot doing ground pounds from the air. This thing is wacky, and very much a title designed for people who like unique concepts. The gameplay challenge was in learning how to use the tools it gives you to open the path. And it could be frustrating as you learn how to properly drift, but in 2026, this remains a super fun game with nothing else really like it. It reviewed well at the time, yoinked the cover of Nintendo Power, and is now playable in proper HD and Rare Replay. Absolutely worth checking out if you get a chance. Just don't accidentally poke the carrier. A few more oddities. Milo's Astro Lanes is a bowling game by Crave Entertainment that has way more content than you would expect. It's not just bowling, it's like someone took mini golf, the cover of Smash Mouth's first 2 albums, and turned it into a video game. I mean, like, you gotta really enjoy the concept to play this for more than 30 minutes, and based on the reviews, not many did. Probably because the performance on console is abysmal. Konami's aforementioned Hybrid Heaven stands out as one of the coolest releases on the console to this day, and something like Enix's Wonder Project J2 is a Bishoujo life sim with cult status. J2 is the follow-up to the Super Nintendo release Wonder Project J. Both never hit the States, but received fan translations, and it was rare to see a fully 2D release on the 64. Anyone ever played Forsaken 64? You know, the one with the box with the crying girl and the face tattoo that had nothing to do with anything in the game? This is technically a port of Probe Entertainment's Forsaken on PC, but the console version of this was actually really solid, also very different. Forsaken bears a lot in common with Parallax's Descent, a first-person corridor shooter, and this is basically more of that. The 64 version has less narrative. It's more like a pick a level and start blasting away, with a soundtrack that differs from the PC and PS1 ports. It's pretty straightforward, although it is easy to get lost when you're staring at the low-resolution levels on a small CRT. Thankfully, if you do get lost, Acclaim made sure to remind you to buy the official strategy guide in-game with a splash that pops up before the main menu. Let's go! Forsaken 64 is awesome. It's on Nintendo Switch Online. Go play it. Games like Quest 64 and Aiden Chronicles are super interesting, cool Nintendo 64 RPGs, which were a rare find on the platform, both to mixed results, both really requiring a guide if you want to get through them. Also, both really frustrating rentals that I couldn't beat back in the day. But I sure as heck played all of Winback Covert Operations. I don't know how. The control scheme is rough. Winback is a third-person cover shooter by Omega Force, the group known almost exclusively for the Dynasty Warriors franchise. But before diving into the Muso dimension, they took a few pot shots at other genres. One of them Winback here, and I'm willing to say this might be one of the most inadvertently influential video games of all time. Even if it blatantly stole Metal Gear Solid 1's life bar. It's got stealth, it's got cover systems, you can press a button to lean out and shoot at enemies. The aiming mechanics were very similar to the way you'd see it done in like Metal Gear Solid 2, Kill Switch, Headhunter. It may be extremely archaic and tough to play these days, considering you're like holding onto two buttons at once to crouch and then peep out of cover, and then another to blast enemies with, but this thing was awesome as a kid. The story has you following Jean Luc as you attempt to meet up back with your squad, the Special Covert Action Team. That's SCAT for short. Oh, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens along the way. It has multiple endings, it's got several weapon types and different ways to approach each situation. Winback is like way ahead of its time and is severely held back by the Nintendo 64, but it was awesome to see a game of this genre hitting the platform after looking at Metal Gear Solid popping off across the pond. Years later in 2006, Koei would hire Kaguya, the people behind Drakengard, Naruto Uzumaki Chronicles, and Bullet Witch for a sequel, Winback 2 Project Poseidon, starring none of the same characters and sporting pretty bad reviews across the board. By 2006, these ideas weren't new and the execution was less than stellar, but that original game sure was cool. Who knew that its point-and-shooting aiming systems would basically be the same as Resident Evil 4? Just, 10 times better. Lastly, how could we talk about bizarre Nintendo 64 games without bringing up the one, the only, Buck Bumble?
What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck bumble. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumble.
Developed by Argonaut Software and taking clear inspiration from Star Fox, since Nintendo yoinked it away from them, Buck Bumble is a game about mutated insects that need to be stopped. Enter the biggity Buck Bumble, half bee, half android, equipped with a freaking gun and ready to put an end to the entire herd. Why do bees have access to robotics, you might ask? Don't worry about it, just check out the game. Yeah, this is wildly nostalgic. I felt like Buck Bumble came out of nowhere. It's a level-based freeform flying shooter that controls really well. You can take Buck all around the gardens, use several different weapons as you blast and shoot down everything in sight while completing objectives. We've got lasers, rocket launchers, like lightning coils, stun guns. You're flying through flowers in a garden. We've got sewers, more gardens. Yeah, looking at Buck Bumble isn't super satisfying. A vast majority of the levels all share the same aesthetic, but mechanically, this is a heck of a game. One that has a very British style of EDM, speed garage playing the entire time. It's funky, different, and has been stuck in my head for literal decades. Buck Bumble does have issues. The Nintendo 64 can be obnoxious. It's very samey, kind of really hard for no reason, and the level variety is near non-existent. It's like you kill a bunch of dudes, or you go plant a bomb and run away. You did it. The multiplayer is okay, but I'm sure most kids would rather slap on GoldenEye 007, Mario Kart, or heck, even Jet Force Gemini before it. At the same time, there's only one Buck Bumble and only one Buck Bumble theme song. Alrighty, it's time for the good stuff. The Nintendo 64 has got a lot of bangers, hidden gems, and stuff that may or may not be better with emulation. There's also like a ridiculous amount of racing games, like a lot. If you include stuff like South Park Rally and Iggy's Wrecking Balls, which is awesome by the way, there are legit around 70 racing video games on the Nintendo 64. That's for real around 1/5 of the entire library. If you like driving a vehicle forward, there's absolutely a way for you to do it. Kart racers with Mickey Speedway, dirt bikes with Jeremy McGrath's Supercross, or maybe into others with Destruction Derby 64. You want to drive specifically only Lamborghinis? Well, boot up Automobili Lamborghini. There's a little racing flavor for everyone, even if that flavor is an F-Zero and Wipeout clone. Yeah, Arrow Gauge, despite having the most incredible menus, awesome music compositions, and fantastic visual design, is on the lower end. However, Extreme G, absolute classic. Probably my favorite release from Probe Entertainment. Extreme G is a futuristic racer where you take control of a remote-controlled bike as you zoom through over-the-top tracks, going up, down, left, right, upside down, you name it. There's a bunch of power-ups you can shoot at other players, there's solid EDM pumping through its veins, and it was a staple of the early 64 library. Thankfully, Nintendo has recognized this and tossed it onto NSO in 2024 in case you ever get the itch. There's no slim pickings for futuristic racers though. There's also Wipeout 64 and F-Zero X. Wipeout 64, the only Wipeout to hit Nintendo consoles, is essentially a slightly different version of 2097. The tracks are a bit more challenging, there's a 4-player mode, and for some reason they decided to have the AI beat your ass at every corner. It's still Wipeout, it's still an 8 or a 9, but also not as good as F-Zero X. I've always felt as if F-Zero X is the black sheep in the F-Zero franchise. The sales were way lower than the Super Nintendo original. It's nowhere near as widely heralded as GX, and it had an expansion that didn't even make its way stateside. But F-Zero X is a beast of a title. It was awesome seeing that little Super Nintendo game I played a few times transform into this ridiculously high-speed racer, which managed to run at a super fast frame rate on the platform known for stinky frame rates. I think GX is probably the best in the series, but F-Zero X is a super cool release worth anyone's time. Oh, also, it's still hard. Look, we got racers of every flavor. You want some Ridge Racer? We got Ridge Racer 64. It's Ridge Racer. Yes.
Ridge Racer!
Arcade racers, traditional racers, racers with the country USA in the title, Mickey Speedway USA, Rush 2 Extreme Racing USA, Cruisin' USA, you know it! Although, only Rush 2 has in-game ads for Area 51, Videogames.com, and Mountain Dew. Ooh, I was beginning to think that was a PlayStation exclusive ad. Oh hey, there's Gauntlet Legends again. Want to forego a vehicle entirely? Atlas's Snowboard Kid has you covered. Race down a mountain at the speed of considerably slower than F-Zero, throw items at your friends, and get that big ol' schnoz back on the ski lift for lap 2. Look, all I'm trying to say is if you're a fan of racing games, surely there was something on the Nintendo 64 for you. I, for one, loved playing Rareware's Diddy Kong Racing. Not only was it the first appearance of Conquer the Squirrel and Banjo, but it took the idea of Mario Kart and let you travel the water and air as well. The courses are a little basic, some of which are extremely short, but being able to race against others on totally different planes was awesome. Diddy Kong Racing has a lot of character. There's a fully fledged story mode where you travel around this little lobby looking for balloons and courses. You're basically trying to take down Wizpig, who did, well, some bad stuff. It's in the instruction manual. Apparently Timber the Tiger's the main character here. I like Tip Top myself.
Hey, it's Tip Top.
Diddy Kong Racing was monumental in continuing to shape the burgeoning 3D kart racing genre. It helped solidify staples started by Mario Kart with drifting and power-ups. The whole cartoony theme park of levels took shape in the late 90s. We got dinosaurs, pirates, snowmen, there's boss fights, unlockable zones, and even a second campaign for those who want to tackle it all again in mirror mode. Diddy Kong Racing's great, it had a metric butt ton of sales, it reviewed well, got a remake on the DS, and unfortunately it's not on Nintendo Switch Online or anywhere now because, well, Microsoft, I assume. They should work together again and do the GoldenEye 007 thing because more generations need to play it. It's a shame that Donkey Kong Racing got canceled because I would have loved to see what Rare could do with another racer. Have you ever played Chameleon Twist? Developed by Japan System Supply and brought stateside by Sunsoft, Chameleon Twist was this strange 3D platformer with an emphasis on, well, tonguing things. You'd hold a button to launch that shit, use the control stick to move it around, and do a Yoshi, just with like 6 or 7 things at a time. The original is a fun, simple platformer with a lot of neat ideas on a console that had a bunch of those. The sequel took the cute, simplistic oval heads, gave them proper chameleon faces, and did it again. Only in the States anyways. Western localization decided that this wasn't chameleon enough, and what we got was a bit more horrifying. Chameleon Twist 2. High Voltage Screaming Action Chameleon Twist 2. Gotta use the full title, it's in the game. I'll never get sick of that noise. Twist 2 added a parasol to slow your descent. You can also use poles to do vertical tongue swing platforming, and despite being a nasty concept, I can't help but love both of these games. Platformers were a dime a dozen on the Nintendo 64. Maybe not as common as racing games, apparently, but Chameleon Twist 1 and 2 remain neat titles that I think fans of the console should check out. Just, you know, after Legend of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. And speaking of cool games, there's a few more that come to mind, like Mario Tennis. I'm not sure if Nintendo's ever been able to top the original, with the recent Switch 2 game being a ridiculous flurry of power-ups on the screen, making it possible to see. Still fun, but the original slaps. It's also the debut of my boy Waluigi, which makes it peak, but look, I got nothing to say about Mario Tennis that isn't like, I like this, almost as good as Virtua Tennis 4, wahoo! Which brings us to one final game, and it's in a series that we've definitely yapped about before. I've talked about Bomberman 64 and Bomberman The Second Attack, but I've never given a proper look at Bomberman Hero, and it's pretty cool.
Bomberman, a new adventure out ahead. Get down!
Bomberman Hero on N64.
It's a new Bomberman.
Bomberman Hero is nothing like any of the other Bomberman games ever released. It completely lacked multiplayer, focused on the single-player experience, and totally abandoned the formula that came before it, including Bomberman 64. Instead of placing bombs and walking away for an explosion, old Bomber's gonna be hurling them directly at enemies with no regard for anyone's safety. He's gonna be jumping, using vehicles, and shooting out bombs while zipping through platforming stages for a solid 8 to 12 hours. Despite the previous release having a solid concept and being great, Hero decided to do its own thing in every aspect, and I kind of admire it for that. We've got a total of 6 planets to explore, 14 areas within them, and a bunch of little stages to trek through. Each of them has a score goal to get points that are given at the end of the stage, and Bomber's always sure to let you know you did it too. We've also got a set of rail shooting stages where you're flying around in various vehicles. Just make sure to slow down on the bombs because they will explode closer and closer to you. Truthfully, as a video game, Bomberman Hero is just okay. It's not very difficult for a majority of the experience before sudden spikes throwing you for a loop. There's close to no replay value. A Bomberman without multiplayer sounds straight up sacrilegious, but at the same time, Hero has this unmistakable vibe. The soundtrack, crafted by Jun Chikuma, relies heavily on drum and bass with a bit of breakbeat, heavy acid techno, and that along with the high contrast visual style gives Bomberman Hero an identity that you could only see on the Nintendo 64. Some enemies have big, exaggerated, cartoony designs. The audioscape becomes this dimension of Jojo Meyer style drumming and endless explosions. You go from a factory to underwater to a castle where you're hanging out with a human princess as whatever Bomberman is supposed to be, and despite the lackluster reception in the 90s, I kinda love playing Hero. I didn't at the time as I much preferred 64 with its fantastic level design, but something about it feels alright. There's a lot to love about Bomberman Hero, also a lot of meh, especially as some of the stages are so slow and simplistic you'll be wondering who exactly they made this for. At times, Bomberman Hero is such a checklist video game that it's tough to write about, so all I can really say is you'll either dig it or you'll hate it. I would never recommend this to someone as their first Bomberman, as it's completely unlike anything else in the series, but for those wanting to see a slightly different take on the White Bomber, I think it's a fun time. Now, let's jam. So there you have it, a bunch of cool Nintendo 64 games. This console kind of came out at the right time in my life. I was like 6 years old, it was a brand new Nintendo thing, and all I did was play Pilot Wings over and over, but I like it, even if it hasn't aged gracefully. What's the cool Nintendo 64 game that you guys like? Let me know down below and I'll make sure to check it out next time. If there's one game to check out from this video, I would say, well, Gauntlet Legends, but ideally you've played that already. But if not, something like Chameleon Twist 2 is definitely pretty solid. If you liked today's video, check out the sponsor Titan Mattress, or you can support us over on the Patreon, buy a t-shirt over at the Pixel Empire, and do the normal YouTube things that you've all heard a million times before. Anyways, I'm gonna head out for now. I've been Austin, and I'll catch you guys next time when there's another publisher that needs looking at. Thank you all so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Clark Fox, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, J Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Nocturnal Nix, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Rare Find It, Space Ghost 2009, and Vox. Thank you all so much for your generous support. Yo, I took like a week to just like chill and play some games, and I sure just played like a crap ton of Diablo 4. Anyway, we got more videos coming out in March. I want to do more deep dives this year. I was thinking about Avatar and some other stuff as well, but if you guys got any other suggestions, let me know down below. For now, I'm gonna go play some games or something. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.